Check your watch. You are literally running on Babylonian time. Welcome to the Explainer. Let's dive right in. Take a good look at this number, 60. Why on earth does this one specific number from a completely ruined, dusty ancient empire still dictate exactly how you live your life today? Well, the answer is going to absolutely blow your mind. Part 1. The first superpower, Rise of the Amorite Kings. Picture this. The year is 1894 BC in central southern Mesopotamia. Boom! An Amorite-ruled state just explodes onto the scene. And they didn't just want a seat at the table in the ancient world. No, they wanted to completely dominate it. King Hammurabi aggressively rebrands his entire domain to the country of Akkad. He literally stole the clout of the older, legendary Akkadian Empire just to cement his own absolute dominance. It was a genius move that turned his small kingdom into a massive regional juggernaut. But what actually happens when an empire rises that incredibly fast? That brings us to part 2, centuries of absolute chaos, the Dark Age of Babylon. Well, it shatters. Right after Hammurabi dies, that whole illusion of endless victory just breaks. The Babylonian Empire completely falls apart, plunging the ancient world into a genuinely terrifying dark age. Just look at the sheer speed of this collapse. In 1155 BC, you get a brief flicker of native rule. But then by 1026 BC, marauding Arameans totally depose the dynasty. And then, just a few short years later, in 1018 BC, a brutal Assyrian invasion rips the very heart of the empire wide open. We are talking total lawless anarchy here. For over 2 decades, not a single king ruled Babylon. I mean, imagine the wealthiest, most advanced city on Earth suddenly thrown into this post-apocalyptic free-for-all. How in the world could they possibly survive that? Part 3, the Chaldean Golden Age, the ultimate comeback. We're pivoting hard to 620 BC. It's the ultimate underdog story. A ruthless leader named Nabopolassar notices that their Assyrian oppressors are super distracted by their own internal revolts. So what does he do? He strikes. Talk about a rapid-fire resume of pure dominance. Nabopolassar completely secures the region. Then his successor, Nebuchadnezzar II, steps up, stabilizes the empire, and actually goes on to invade Egypt in 567 BC. He even marries a Median princess and constructs the legendary Hanging Gardens. Just like that, Babylon is resurrected into the absolute jewel of the ancient world. But here's the crazy part. Their greatest legacy wasn't war. And it wasn't architecture either. Section 4, Inventing Time and Math, the Ancient Tech Blueprint. Their true legacy was their minds. Babylonia was literally the hyper-advanced technological blueprint for modern civilization. Seriously, prepare to have your mind completely blown. Let's compare for a second. Today, you and I use a pretty basic base 10 counting system, but the Babylonians, they used this genius base 60 system. You might be wondering, why 60? Well, because 60 is basically a mathematical master key. It has a massive number of really easy divisors, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. Having all those options made complex calculations incredibly fluid. They even created a true place value system, where the digits in the left column represented larger values, exactly the way we do it today. And because of that exact base 60 system, we now have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle. Seriously, every single time you look at a clock or measure an angle, you are effectively downloading data directly from an ancient Babylonian mathematician. It's insane. But how accurate were they really? Take a look at this number, 7. Working on literal ancient clay tablets, using the technology of a mud brick civilization, these mathematicians actually calculated the square root of 2 correctly to exactly 7 decimal places. That level of precision is just off the charts. Which leads us to a massive historical bombshell. They knew the Pythagorean theorem well before Pythagoras was even born. We have been giving the Greeks credit for this for centuries, but the Babylonians? They already had the math completely locked down. And the wild thing is, they didn't stop there. They looked up. Right in the 8th and 7th centuries BC, they completely revolutionized astronomy. They started using internal logic and predictive planetary systems to the point where they could literally foretell solar and lunar eclipses. This wasn't just casual stargazing, guys. This was the first true scientific revolution. It laid the direct foundation for Greek astronomy and, honestly, the entire Western scientific revolution. So, Here's the million-dollar question. How does an empire this advanced, this wealthy, and this brilliant just vanish overnight? Part 5. The final collapse. A sudden betrayal. Now, you would think an empire this mathematically perfect would be able to calculate its own survival, right? Well, they missed one absolutely crucial variable: terrible leadership. Here is the fatal domino effect. Step 1. King Nabonidus alienates his own people by trying to centralize religion, which just deeply angers the local priesthoods. Step 2. He straight up abandons the capital, leaving the city's defense to his son, Belshazzar. And Belshazzar, he was a terrible diplomat who managed to alienate all the remaining political elite. Then, step 3. Nabonidus literally retreats to the desert to go dig up old temples, completely abandoning his empire's security in the process. And that leads to a totally fatal, incredibly ironic twist. Remember earlier when Babylon overthrew their mighty Assyrian oppressors? Well, by destroying the heavily militarized state of Assyria, Babylon actually removed its own buffer zone. Without the might of Assyria there to keep foreign powers in check, Babylonia, which now had a deeply divided and disaffected population, was left entirely exposed. They literally engineered their own doom. And in 539 BC, they fell. The empire vanished, but its ghost absolutely survived. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. Is the ghost of Babylon still ticking on your wrist right now? Every single second you spend exploring this explainer, driving to work, or just living your daily life, you are submitting to the brilliant math of a fallen empire. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning everything, especially time itself.